Welcome, everybody, to another Attack Action Podcast Deck Tech video. I'm joined here today by none other than Johnny Blue Razor himself, who has recently taken a pretty spicy Katsu list to not one, but two top 8s at recent ProQuest events. What's up, Mitch?
Hey, Isaac. How's it going?
Oh, pretty good. I'm pretty excited about this Katsu success you've been having.
Yeah, it's just really, really fun to play, too. I mean, spoiler, aggro is really, really fun.
It is fun to do a lot of things and draw a lot of cards and,
yeah,
play a lot of cards out. I completely agree.
Who wants to block anyway?
Yeah, you told me about some of your matches and it sounded pretty wild.
Yeah, there's some pretty insane combos you can put together with this deck.
Nice. Okay, so let's talk about first why you picked Katsu, and then we'll talk a little bit about the Power 3 triangle going on right now in your matchups into them. So why did you pick Katsu? Why did you feel comfortable on it?
I've been playing Katsu since Welcome to Wraith, and it's just to me, it just feels like really fundamental Flesh and Blood. It's really thematic. It feels like you're a ninja, like putting together these cool sequences. It's just a lot of fun. And it's a deck that I've gotten a lot of reps on. And when all this new, I also main Prism, and when all this new Prism tech came out, I thought it was really cool. But I just couldn't kind of get my head around it, and I was struggling with it a lot. And I kind of just reverted back to just go with what you know, because you can net deck all you want, but like really it's time in the driver's seat that makes you more competitive. I mean, it was just for me, like, it's better to know your car than to have the fastest car.
Fair enough. Sorry, everybody, about all the click-clacking. My dog was really excited that we're excited, and, doesn't understand that we're actually busy.
She also plays aggro. Super stoked on it.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, taking a deck you're very comfortable on can give you an edge up in a lot of events, especially events with a pretty wide open field. So let's talk about your game plan into Starvo, Prism, and Viserai. Are you running pretty much the same game plan?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, Viserai and Prism, I'm basically just kind of trying to go as fast as I can. Especially Prism, because I don't really have any 6 power attacks to pop, and I'm just kind of hoping that they will prioritize getting auras out over blocking, and then I can hopefully finish a turn by kind of early to middle game, like poking a Gadachi to pop an aura, but otherwise just trying to really get them on the back foot. Viserai is kind of the same. Starvo's a little different. Starvo, like, I don't know if you can. People say there's like a really linear game plan you can go into Starvo. I cited a couple defense reactions. We'll get to that in a minute. Just to kind of try to weather the storm when he hits Oakenold and Spinal Crush and those sort of things. But really, I'm also just trying to push him into blocking or just really punish him for it, because if I can get through, 20 damage and he's holding a hand so he can fuse Oakenold for 11, I feel like I came on top with that exchange. So
nice. So not so many defense reactions that it really dilutes your threat level.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So do you feel comfortable in all of those matchups? Like who are you happy to sit down in front of, and who do you not want to see?
I don't want to see any of them, honestly. They're all really, really nasty. Especially Viserai and Prism. In this most recent one, I top 8 and then just ate shit into Prism, and I just got totally rolled over. And that was tough. But who am I happy to see in the field? I know I saw 2 Warriors. One of them beat me, actually. But happy to see Warrior, happy to see Dash, happy to I'm not really happy to see Ice Lexi, maybe Lightning Lexi though. Just kind of the rest of the field. And I will say that like when we talk about the meta and stuff, I feel like it applies a lot to the top 8, and you still have to get through the field to get there, and the field is comprised a lot of people's pet decks and people who just got into the game and like pulled this legendary and then went with that class because that was saved them a couple $100 as opposed to going with a meta class. So you have to be good into all the classes still.
Definitely. And so you have a very aggressive, proactive approach that threatens a lot of hit effects, which I find, is definitely a good strategy into a lot of players, especially if they're not super comfortable playing against Katsu. So if you, I'm just hypothesizing, but have you found that maybe some newer players or a number of players you run into are not intimately familiar with the blocking patterns you need to know for Katsu? Like, does bringing this old school hero into a newer hero meta give you an edge up sometimes?
Yeah, I think it does. I am, try not to rely on that, but I have seen it a lot where, like Starvost, for example, just seed and, use Crown of Seeds and use the shield on your first 2 Gadachis instead of saving one of those for, say, your Lag Tap that comes in for 4 or your Torrent Tempo that comes in for 5. Because those breakpoints on your attack action cards are much more important for your Katsu ability to fetch cards. Because this deck is plays a lot of Cheerios, it can go really, really wide even after the Gadachis. So blocking the Gadachis is not as important as it used to be, even though you can't really block them both. It's just I'm getting a good trigger off of the Gadachis and even bigger than that, and I'm getting a Katsu fetch somewhere on the line. I also find that kind of the inverse happens where people are gonna 2-card block Surging Strike, and for me it doesn't matter anymore because I can go from Surging Strike and instead of Whelming, I'll just go into this suite over here, and then they go, oh crap, he's just still going.
It feels like a lose-lose situation when Kadachis can trigger even bigger than that. Your opening combo can trigger a Katsu fetch, but then you just have the hand anyway, which is something that I noticed. We played a couple warm-up games the day before this recent ProQuest, and what I really notice is maybe the consistency and the threat density of Katsu has gone up quite a lot, especially in old mid-range lists or even aggro lists. You can kind of block and wait for a window, but I noticed with this deck, it's you can go whole games and the gas is just always on. It seems a lot more fluid.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of, I don't know, should I just kind of dive into how this thing works now, or?
Yeah, sure. Can you explain, I guess, what you're trying to do and what a typical turn looks like, utilizing some of your key tools?
Right. If I have the Gadachi food, then it's going to be Gadachi for 1 or 2, hoping to get a hit there so I can get any one of these 7, even bigger than that, to be able to play. So that one, you just need 1 Gadachi damage. You don't want to play it after 2 Gadachi damages. So what you can do is go Gadachi, and then if you want, play your second Gadachi, and then as a reaction, play the even bigger than that and make the Quicken token before the second damage hits, because you want to only have dealt 1 damage when you play even bigger than that, because the rest of the deck, even the blues, are all 2 attack and higher. And so that's so you can trigger it, because fizzling even bigger than that would be really, really bad, because you're just dumping a card out of your hand to do nothing. Ideally you do that, and then you go in with something that doesn't have go again, like Snatch or E-Strike, or a middle of your combo piece.
Or even a Torrent, which has conditional go again.
Oh, yeah, and of course Torrent. Yeah, because the deck is really good when you have Snaps online or you have a Quicken into Torrent. That's kind of... I'm trying to get this main line off because this Break Tide is really, really good. Because it comes in for 5 Dominate, it's free. It banishes a card that you can play until the end of your next turn. So if you can do Break Tide and have a card to Arsenal, it's crazy. And plus, Rushing River is going to filter your hand before you go into Break Tide. So you can set up what Break Tide is going to banish. You can also do that with even bigger than that. So both of those things, like, even bigger than that, because the red one opts 3, it's like you're crafting your turn. You're going to not only, like, opt and then see what you're going to draw off even bigger than that, but you're going to set up what mass triggers. You're going to set up what you draw next turn. So all that feels really strong, and it makes you more consistent. So it's going to be like Gadachi, even bigger than that. And then usually I'm trying to go, if I don't have this full combo line, I'm just trying to go like 1, 2. These, I don't run Begenshis and Lord of Wind. I don't run Blackout Kick or Hurricane. These are just damage cards. And oftentimes if I don't have these, I will go in with one of these first to try to get the Katsu trigger. Because I find, like, if you just go in with leg tap, they might block it and then you don't get the Katsu trigger to go get the next piece. But if you do one of these first, then you're like, okay, Ravenous comes in for 4 maybe. That's another thing that triggers off even bigger than that too, which is cool. Because you get to opt what Ravenous shows, which is nice.
So then Ravenous hits, and then you Katsu fetch the second piece in the line, and then play the first piece, then the second piece.
Right. Yeah, so that, like, makes it a lot more consistent.
Nice. So yeah, let's talk about, like, the opt-off even bigger than that, and crafting your turns is something completely new to Katsu. You've never been able to very smoothly opt to set up. I mean, you have snatch triggers, you have whelming triggers, you have the even bigger than that draw, you have the Katsu trigger, the mask trigger, the Ravenous effect. That's a pretty long list of cards in your deck.
Yeah, there's a lot of synergy here. It's really cool. Yeah, and like the 100 wins is like just in case, say you end up with I don't know, leg tap, whelming, or like, I don't know, some other card, or like a couple extra blues. This just like fills in as a 3 go again that you can fetch, which is really cool. So then you can like expand your combo line. And then with this, like, you always have Ancestral for the +1 or Breaking Scales for the +1 to get that 3 to trigger Mask of Momentum, which is neat too.
Right, this card is really powerful because it is a combo card with Go Again built in.
Yeah,
which is like really amazing actually, in that, like you said, you're always threatening Breaking Scales, but it doesn't have a contingency. You don't have to lead in with another card. It's just already online.
Yeah, and I'm very rarely, if ever, trying to actually combo 100 wins into 100 wins. It's just, I don't really find it necessary. It's just kind of... Also, a lot of times, like, I'm going to have some other red 0-cost card in my hand, and it's important to keep your density of reds high in your deck. I mean, you can Katsu trigger and, like, discard reds, go get other reds, and that's a game you can't really sustain for very long. Even if it feels a little bit inefficient, it's good to try to play out or Katsu trigger out your blues and yellows, because they get shuffled all the time from your Katsu trigger. The likelihood of you drawing like 2 or 3 blues and yellows in a hand goes up. I mean, just the whole game.
That's a really good point, since you're always shuffling, managing your ratios, your pitch and cost ratios in your deck constantly is pretty key.
Yeah, and it's hard to do sometimes, because you go, man, like, I really want to, I don't know, I don't really want to play this snatch for 2, but sometimes, like, you just got to. I mean, you gotta throw some of that stuff out. Otherwise, at the end of the game, you're not going to be able to close it.
Another thing you've talked to me about is the 100 wins has value because you do run a lot of generics in your deck, that having enough ancestral targets is an additional value to that card.
Yeah, for sure. That does creep up sometimes, and it's kind of, I mean, in that situation, you can like just kind of Katsu it away, which doesn't feel great, or you can block with it. I don't really want to block, but sometimes you just do.
So okay, let's talk about you alluded to not, I mean, you don't run the finishers to either of these combos, or like the full combos of any lines, really, right? But playing against you, I've found that, surging into whelming, like whelming in of itself is threatening enough, especially in this new Flesh and Blood meta where decks don't really want to block that much, unless you're playing into Old Time or something. But so these are like quite punishing on their own, and then not having to find the full 4-card combo and having all these free attacks and just being a little bit more flexible in your lines allows you to run, as you can see, very few resource cards. So the threat density of the deck goes way up. And I mean, you're still threatening. Like, I personally know that you're not running this full line, but it still presents, well, you're playing Surging, and then you're going to get the whelming, and that's still a nightmare for me, even if there's no follow-up.
Yeah, I mean, I've had turns where you go leg tap Rising and then Surging whelming, and it's just pitching a blue.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, what is that, 18 damage and threatening 2 draws. So that's pretty good. So this is pretty much all of my combos are kind of like a pyramid shape. So it's 3 and 2, 3 and 2, 5, 4, 3. You don't really want to run, in my opinion, like an equal amount of combo cards is a thing that follows it. So like you don't want the same amount of, I don't know, this is that, because oftentimes you're just, sure the consistency is nice, but oftentimes you're just going to end up with too many combo cards in your hand.
And so I'd like to just reiterate in case anybody missed, like you said, managing your quicken tokens and go-agains, and maybe just not leading with a Naked Torrent that they can shut down if you don't have snaps up is like really crucial to playing your turns in this deck.
Yeah, don't get lulled into thinking that, they're going to... Yeah, if you took a bunch of damage and you're holding a 5-card hand and you don't have a way to guarantee Torrent, good luck to you. 'Cause, I mean, if you have Torrent and you have a Razor, that's pretty good. Because, I mean, they have to basically 3-card block it. And then, like, you fizzled your turn, but, like, they're not going to really have much of a turn either. So that's okay.
Fair enough. So I notice over here you're running 9 attack reactions.
Yeah.
Including, I mean, these are all very powerful. Razor's actually a threat of go again as well. Ancestral is just a great card, and Lunging Press is versatile in that it is a resource card, a Katsu fetch card, and can get you over that break point to trigger something that you want.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, Ancestral is really good, but a lot of times you come in with like Surging for 5 or Torrent for 5, and they 2-card block for 6, and you go, cool, Ancestral isn't great right now. But if you got Lunging Press there, maybe you'll get it. I think Lunging Press is like, it kind of does all the other Katsu things. It pitches for Gadachis, you can fetch it away. This is like usually a pretty good target to discard with Katsu. You don't really need them all. But it does help you have threats at the end of the game. I did win a match on played Ravenous, flipped a blue, came in for 2, he blocked for 2, Lunging Press. It's just sometimes that's all you need.
Totally. You won a number of games, I heard, from people not really respecting Katsu.
Yeah, or just not thinking. I mean, the guy, there was one. It was 7-1. I had 1, and I came in with Scar for 4. And then he just holds his hand and he goes, well, if you have a Razor, you win. And I go, okay, I have a Razor, I win. Like,
definitely.
Could have blocked with a card. I mean, it was Viscera. He could have he didn't need a full hand to hit me with a Rosetta Thorn. But
yeah. Well, Viscera does need maybe 3 cards to turn on Rosetta.
Yeah.
But you being at 1 health, a blue triggers a Rune Chant and a Rosetta for 2, which is still pretty threatening. But I do notice you run a lot of pink stripes in here. Is that old, like when you slap this down, do you like gesture towards the pink stripe there? to let him know?
I do.
You're taking him to the old school?
There is one foil alpha in here that I do like to point out, but mostly, people ask me like, "Oh, how long have you been playing the game?" You just kind of straight.
Awesome. Okay, well, do you want to mention anything else about Break Tide, or is that pretty much covered, do you think?
Okay, Break Tide is really good, but it does take a little bit of time in the seat to get used to what the best things are to trigger off of Break Tide, especially since Rushing River is coming before, and if that's comboed, for some reason I've fumbled this a few times, but it can be kind of a stumbling block to figure out like what do you keep in hand and what do you want to see banished. You want to banish banishing a razor is really nasty, just because it makes them like overblock or I don't know, just stress out about everything the next turn. You want to do like a combo opener is fine, or just like any starting attack action card. You don't really want to banish a combo card because like you don't really know what you're gonna draw the next turn. You could banish one of these items. We haven't talked about these yet.
That's some spice right there.
Oh, it's some spice, yeah. Both of these have helped me win games.
Nice. Well, these items they're very powerful, and they have go again when you play them out. So unlike maybe an E-pot, which I know you used to run, which Katsu can play out fairly easily on the end of the chain, but these are much more versatile or much more flexible.
Yeah. And then, I run 12 blues, and so, like, you're going to get an all-red hand sometimes. I have had hands of 4 even bigger than that and still manage to craft a good turn, because you just kind of go with the Gadachi, and then you just go, like, even bigger than that, even bigger than that, even bigger than that, and you just kind of, like, get a new hand, which is pretty dumb, but pretty cool. These blues and yellows is another thing you might want to consider Katsu kind of discarding, because you don't want a lot of these in the end of the game. They are a huge liability. They are really good early on.
Right. Mitch cannot stress this enough. You constantly shuffle your deck, so these no blocks and resource cards are going to surface sooner than expected. Like, Katsu shuffles much more than any deck I play, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is there any other points you'd like to make about this main board, or do you want to move on to the sideboard?
No, pretty much. Even though I go really fast, I think Tunic is the way to go. Tunic counter. Just because, a lot of times the game is like, I don't think I've ever had a game close out faster than turn 6. So like you're basically getting the same value as cross strap, but the one block is really important in the end, where you're trying to do anything you can to claw tempo and hold cards in your hand, because that's the only way you're going to win. Because most of your cards block for 2 or don't block at all. I think there's 11 cards or something that don't block at all. So having that one extra defensive point to say, I don't know, block out a meet and greet that has a Mauve Skies in front of it or something. It can save you a lot of health.
Wear your tunic for the armor, everyone.
Yeah, tunic for the armor. I don't know if you don't have that. Yeah, I guess cross strap, or like even, I don't know. I kind of want to say Vest the First Fist, because sometimes you'll like draw a torrent or something and you don't have any resources floating, or even like what is it, the blood drop brocade.
Oh yeah, blood drop brocade.
That way you can always kind of like have money for Razor, which is kind of cool.
Right, those two are instants as opposed to Heart and Cross Trap, which is an action and breaks the chain, right, which is very pertinent to Katsu.
Right. Yeah. Also, you could try the other mask. That'd be really aggressive. You could use the other mask to probably Break Tide's the best target there, which would be really good for one turn. But then, yeah, a ninja without mask is just not nearly as threatening.
Well, and you've told me, I mean, many times you'll threaten 2 mask triggers in a turn. So having the mask online is fairly oppressive.
Yeah, a lot of times, like, oh, they blocked the second Gadachi using a card. Then I've still got a hand of Cheerios, and I can still flex 3 cards at 4. Sorry. Yeah, like, a lot of the game you're trying to, especially against Viscerai, you're trying to bait out equipment blocks. And, I mean, if they throw equipment at Gadachi, you're stoked. If they, like, go 3 and 2 on Surging Strike, like Arcanite Skullcap and a 3 block on Surging Strike, cool. I mean, Leg Tap and Surging Strike are great bait for equipment. Because then you just kind of pivot into something over here, ideally.
Gotcha. So, I've noticed too, like, playing this deck, you threaten mask, and I know you have a lot of opt, but you'll also, I mean, maybe you'll hit mask and draw a snatch, and then just play it. Threatening nothing except an arsenal card, right? So, between the Break Tides and the 6 snatches, I know you have a lot of opt, but are you pretty happy to throw almost any of these cards into your arsenal? Did you craft the deck that way?
I don't mind, like, the blue snatch in Arsenal. I mean, Soul Bead in Arsenal is pretty bad. But I do run, I mean, that's reflective of running this card, is that, I mean, almost anything in the deck, I don't mind having an Arsenal.
Which is pretty strong. I mean, that's a good...
Yeah. If you don't have Snapdragons, don't put this in Arsenal, because the odds of you going in off of Torrent is going to be low, and that's like a huge liability. I think arsenaling one of these 2 cards is okay, but you just want to make sure to check your graveyard first, and make sure that you have enough of these openers to kind of make sure you get there. I think Rising Knee is a great choice. Whelming's a little risky because you might not have the resources to go for Surging Strike. But you can pretty much always play Leg Tap on a turn, and it's pretty much always worth it. E-Strike in Arsenal is okay. I kind of go back and forth on E-Strike, just because it's so card hungry. But what is cool, if even bigger than that, is that it'll have Go again, and then you just choose the 5 and draw, and then you get to choose what you draw also. So.
Yeah, so then it becomes 0 for 5 Go again. Free hand filter, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, it's just okay. Okay, so going into sideboard.
Sure, I don't know if you want to just throw the cards down on top or replace cards as you will, but yeah, can you walk us through all these cards and then the decision, behind, or let us know when you play them, I guess.
Yeah, Arcane Lantern. I tested this into Viscerai a little bit just because the breaking scales is like pretty valuable. Wouldn't recommend that, but you could throw it in for Wizard. I really don't think you need this card though. No Ring Gloves replaces breaking scales against Viscerai. That's about its only purpose.
What about Chain or Briar? Or are you happy to chop them up first?
I think I'm just trying to race them. I don't know. Chain has some like maybe Consuming Volition and Meet and Greet and stuff that might be a little nastier, but I think I can kind of outrace him.
So you'd like the armor, you mean?
Yeah, I'd like the armor. Okay, so probably the biggest part of the sideboard is going to be into Starvo. And that's because of the Crown of Seeds and the shield interaction. And when I say a shield, I mean the what is it called? The one you pay 1 and it blocks for 1, not the ice shield.
The Ram's Head.
Yeah, the Ram's Head. So that makes pretty much this whole suite not so great. So what I do there is I take the 2 blues out and I put 2 blue items in.
Nice.
Kind of a rule of thumb with Katsu is that if you're going to be sideboarding cards, you want to either want to replace attack actions with attack actions, or things that aren't attack actions with things that aren't attack actions. You don't
preserve your ratios.
Yeah, it's okay to replace not attack actions with attack actions. I think that's okay, but going the other way is really risky. Um, so the Talisman of Balance also comes out against him because he can just crown away his arsenal and kind of turn that off. So I don't run that one. Instead, I would probably run another Talisman of Recompense just to have more resources to get over his defenses if he's blocking. Same with Energy Potion. That kind of sets up like a Surging Strike turn or whatever. I think Talisman of Ties is interesting because you get that out and then he doesn't get the efficiency of Crown and Shield anymore, because if he crowns on my turn, then he doesn't get to draw a card. So that's just kind of to discourage him from... And then if you're going to like pitch a card just for Shield, that doesn't really feel good either. So
I'd just like to say, I love how many items you're running from Everfest. I'm not sure how many of them are excellent, but they're all very cool and interesting. So I like finding, like having this red line deck and then just having a Talisman of Recompense, or like a blue 0 cost, right? Because this is also just great in Katsu as a pitch card or a fetch card or whatever, but can turn off Crown.
Yeah, I mean, it does everything Katsu wants to do, except block. And I don't run Flick Flack, so I don't want to block. This is just about going as fast as you can.
Yeah, so you've talked to me before about how you actually don't think Flick Flack is that strong in this current meta. So you don't run any Flick Flacks, not even in the sideboard, which has traditionally been, in my opinion, like one of the strongest cards in the game.
Yeah, like kind of his bread and butter, but there isn't that much wide or break points to really worry about.
Right, like Viscera is really mixed, hard to block stuff. Prism is just a whole different machine. I guess you could block Starvo and then block the hammer, but then
you probably wouldn't swing it.
Yeah, and you're trying to aggro him anyway, so
Yep.
That's a little bit counter to that plan as well.
Yeah, so sorry, I think this kind of got replaced by the recompense, but yeah, so the blue and yellow come out, and then even like the reds come out too, because you're probably going to want to run sinks. So these you can still Katsu away if you're having an aggressive, if you aggressively pivot, and it blocks that Frosty Hammer, which is good. And then the other kind of component to it is finding a replacement for these Quicken tokens. So I run a Talisman of Featherfoot into Starvo, so that way like the Lunging Press and the Empowerment can still give something go again, without the interaction of even bigger than that, because I don't really take out any Torrent of Tempos, and you still need those to hit. So yeah, that's why I'm doing that.
Nice, and once again, you'll notice all of these items all have go again when you play them, so
Right.
They don't slow you down. They're all 0 cost, and they all pitch as well in this cheap deck.
Yep.
So
Yeah. Then the other thing I put in Phlox, and that helps with the Quicken tokens also. I would probably take out a Torrent of Tempo, and I would probably do something like this, like a Torrent of Tempo and a Rushing River come out for the Phlox, because
yeah, get rid of those yellows.
Yeah, you don't
Too many resource cards.
Yeah. Yeah, because like without even bigger than that, the likelihood of being able to run that line over and over again is fairly low. So you take those out, and then kind of depending how you want to do it. I do have 3 immovables. I'm not sure if I want that many, but it does help with the Fused Oakenolds or the Starvoed Spinal Crush or whatever. So usually this would replace probably something like your Empowerment, Razor, maybe like 2 Razors. Because again, like you don't want to pull out things that are attack actions and replace them with things that aren't attack actions. So
Nice.
yeah, so
So then the Viscera and Prism matchup, is that just the core aggro list? Are there you have any changes, any advice?
I pretty much run the same thing into both of them. I just try to go as fast as I can. Yeah, that's. I think the other thing is the Talisman of Balance does not go in against Prism because she can play maybe an Orad Arsenal.
Oh, right.
But other than that, I think, and then yeah, like I thought Ties might be okay for the Tome, but she's not really running Tome anymore, so yeah, wouldn't run that into Prism.
Nice.
I do tech in like maybe an extra blue or yellow going into something like Ice Lexi, just because you're gonna need to pay for some extra frostbites or a channel turn or whatever. So
Right. So I have seen a couple, Katsus making the news, but it's been pretty quiet. Although after you top eighted this weekend, I saw that a Wellington ProQuest had 3 or 4 Katsus in their top 8 as well. It seems that Katsu may be on the rise, which is pretty exciting. Katsu hasn't been, A tier or S tier for quite a while now. Some of the new heroes are, stealing the show, if you will.
yeah, something like that. Hogging the spotlight.
So this is very cool that this list. I mean, it's very impressive. It's very aggressive, and it's intimidating to play against.
Yeah, and I think there's kind of a lack of defensive decks in the meta, and I think there's just a lot of decks that don't want to block, and you can really punish them for it. I think Katsu's kind of always been on the fringe of the meta, and hasn't really been able to like flex in just because like some of the other Rune Blades have just kind of been better anyway you kind of compare it. But I think he's pretty good now. I mean, on the surface, the Everfest editions were, I think, pretty subtle, but they really did make a difference. I mean, just even bigger than that is crazy. And
It's funny because that's like kind of a Carney flavored generic card, so it was not,
yeah,
a Ninja Majestic edition, but it's probably the best new card you got.
yeah. I think kind of before Everfest came out, I was thinking about Viserai and was thinking, man, wouldn't it be cool to go into Find Center and get Zen State for all those dang Runechant tokens, And so I was originally fooling with Flock of the Featherwalkers and like extra razors and extra things to get go again, to make that combo happen. And then there's more tools came out with it for Everfest. And then in, I guess, 2 weeks now, the rules are going to get updated and Find Center is going to be terrible because they can be blocked with equipment, which Viserai's got a ton of equipment, so it's never going to hit. So I had to pivot to something else. And
Right.
that's when I saw Break Tide. I went, oh yeah.
I know it's pretty unfortunate that counter could have been pretty online and pretty good, but at least you have another avenue to success.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't... if you can set it up, you can go Break Tide, and then, I mean, you can have a Razor in hand and keep going off a Break Tide. That's one avenue that's really good. Or you can just set up a really big next turn by having something like, an item or two out, having a card in Banish, having a card in Arsenal. I mean, you got a big turn set up there. So it's fun. I like it.
Yeah, and I would say, so another thing that kind of surprised me was just the damage ceiling on Katsu has gone up quite a lot. Like, it used to be able, you could kind of like block one Kadachi or block one attack maybe and keep Katsu pretty mitigated. But now instead of threatening, maybe 14 damage, you could be threatening 20 or more damage in a turn. So I'm sure that's caught some people off guard when you start your turn for the first time. People who haven't seen Everfest Katsu, just the amount of power it presents is
Yeah, and just the way that it can't really be thrown off of its groove as easily. Because before, when you're relying on 3 combo lines, I mean, if you blocked one part of it and you couldn't fetch, then that was kind of a fizzle. But now running these other cards, especially like Snatch and E-Strike off of a Quicken token, I mean, it's just like you're presenting so many other things just in the middle that aren't even your main game plan. It's just kind of, I don't know, I don't want to call it filler. It's just kind of like, here's 4 times 3, and I'm going to do it maybe 2 more times. So
Right.
if you let any of it hit, and of course, I mean, you just end up having to. There's just too much.
Yeah, the mask or snatch or, whatever draw trigger you're looking at is like very likely to hit in this deck as well. It's before if you have go again and, I could say, all right, I'll let that mask trigger and hit. And it's like odds are you don't have the resources or draw the right card or you'd rather arsenal or, whatever. But, now it's like everything's online most of the time.
Yeah, you're coming in for 4 damage at least 2 times a turn, if not 3 or more. And each one of those matters.
Yeah.
When you're having a good turn. This deck can really have some bad turns, though. I don't know. If you just draw, like, just combo pieces, yeah. I mean, at least the combo pieces block, but it's definitely not what you want to be doing. That feels bad. But it does... I have fallen into the pitfall of, like, oh, I drew all these, but I don't have snaps online. I'm going to go for it. And then they do guard block tempo, and then you're just like, well, I could have not taken 6 damage last turn. That would have been smart.
That's pretty interesting, though, that some of the dud hands you could draw also block really well.
Yeah.
So then the hands that are online maybe block less well, but they're online, and then more of the dud hands maybe don't block as well.
Yeah, and I think, putting in...
Or do block, sorry.
Putting in especially the unmovables, like, can lead to dud hands. I've been in a situation where, well, yeah, in the Starvo, sometimes, like, if you're being oppressive to him and he's dumping his hand, and then you draw a movable and put it in arsenal, I mean, it might be 2 turns or 3 turns before he's even threatening that again, and he's more likely to threaten it because you stuck a bad card in arsenal, and now you're not threatening as much to keep making him dump his hand. So he's now more likely to come back at you. Best...
self-fulfilling prophecy.
Offense is best defense, sort of thing. Yeah, so I guess to wrap up, this isn't a final draft. It's a work in progress.
Yeah, do you want to talk about any changes you're thinking about? Anything you'd like to, or any way you'd like to upgrade this list?
Yeah, I think I would definitely cut the unmovables, or maybe not as many of them. Maybe I think Starvo's kind of starting to fade out. I mean, the last ProQuest we went to, there was 2 in the entire building, so, but that's not every place. I think the sink belows are still good in a Starvo, but the unmovables might be a little extra. I think that 3 and 2 torrents is a little much. I think I might cut this to 4 and cut the rushing rivers to 3, just keeping the reds. I think I would add another 100 wins just because having that ability to like fetch something that has go again really helps fix some turns. More so than I had anticipated, that when that does arise, it's really a key way to get out of it. And I think I might rock another Talisman of Balance just because it allows you to, like, I don't know, play that thing at the end of the combo line just to get through an extra point of damage, and then you get a card in Arsenal anyways. So that's pretty sweet. Another idea I'm kind of toying with, haven't tested it yet, but I mean, I do need a couple more yellows in here, but I might rock a yellow Promise of Plenty or 2 just to be a dick, because I grew up with 3 brothers and I wasn't held enough and I just want to be mean. Also, maybe a lunging press might come out because three's a little much. Might throw in a blue razor just, as my signature touch.
I was going to say you're getting a pass because you're playing lunging presses.
Yeah.
Despite not having a blue razor in here. But
other than that, I'm pretty happy with the list. Scar for a Scar. If you're going right, Scar for a Scar is not going to have go again. which which isn't great. These are really good early game where you can, I don't know, if you're going first or if you're going second, you can just take the damage and go, or if you're going first, you can. I went first every single time out of 6 games, and I went 5-1, and that was either by choice or not by choice. And I think going turn 0, getting a card in arsenal, and then launching out with a 5-card hand really helps you grab tempo.
One thing, one power Katsu has kind of is even going first. If you have a really money hand, you can actually push damage.
Yeah.
Like not every, because I mean obviously you don't want to just swing for 6 and allow your opponent to filter their hand, but Katsu is one of the few heroes who can actually aggressively push damage on turn 0, and maybe even get an arsenal card.
Yeah, especially if they're like throwing a card at each Kadachi to filter their hand, and then
Yeah, I do not block the first Kadachi.
Yeah.
For fear of running out of cards to block the following things.
And yeah, I'd say like against Prism, you want to go turn 0 because they might have a handful of auras, and I mean even if they play one, you can still get through some damage and then finish with a Kadachi to pop an aura.
Nice.
Stuff like that.
Well, great deck tech.
So yeah.
Do you have any closing comments here?
Just thank you to everybody for watching. I hope this list helps you. I'd love to see this deck evolve. I'd love to see Katsu take more of a presence in the meta. I hope that the next set might give him a few more toys, but honestly, I really like it as it is. So, yeah, I don't know, just have fun smashing faces. Going places, smashing faces.
Dyson Fools. All right, thanks everyone. We will put the deck list in the video description, and see you next time.